Sports professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports. You're on the record. It never, ever gets old. A, my friendship with my good friend Leigh Steinberg, and B, his impact on the industry. A lot of it is because he is so incredibly dynamic. You've heard it all. $4 billion in contracts, $1 billion to charity, 8 number one overall picks, 64 first round pick. We don't even need to talk about that. We'll get into that in the middle of this. But his profound influence on the business continues to grow as we get older and we get better. How about that for an intro?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all. I've reduced Leigh Steinberg to a thank you, but there's so much more to cover. So, first of all, we're up on yet an annual July, which is always you're speaking at CCon, but as important, if not more, Vegas is yours as you run the Agent Academy, the Steinberg Agent Academy. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I wanted to mentor a new generation of sports professionals with ethics and values. And people go to law school and business school and sports management programs, and they learn the basic principles in those areas, but in a practical sense, they're not ready with the skills that are needed to be successful and make an impact in the world of sports. And those, first of all, are listening skills. It's being able to draw out another human being. So we talk about cutting below the surface, peeling back the layers of the onion so you understand someone else's deepest anxieties and fears and greatest hopes and dreams. And if you can put yourself in the other person's heart and mind and see the world the way they see it, it's possible to navigate your way into any profession. So we do a segment on how to start an agency, the economics, the requirements. We do a specific section on recruiting. And we bring in this year, I think it'll be Carnell Lake, who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
Mike Sherrard, who played for Dallas and New York and the 49ers. And they're a father and son team. And so these young aspirants have to do a pitch and see if they can sell the athlete on their services. And then we do a negotiation with half of them playing general managers and half of them playing player agents, and they have to negotiate a big contract with a long laundry list. We do a section on branding and marketing, how in this new world of social media, you create a brand and you create an appellation that refers you to someone's name or a product. We do a section on damage control. What do you do when an athlete gets in trouble? And we do a section on charity where the young people have to put together a public service announcement that speaks to some cause. They learn how to put together a charitable foundation that allows an athlete to get the leading business figures, political figures, and all the rest. So we've done this, Rick, now 35 times in New York and Washington and Dallas and Chicago and all across the country, and created agents who go on to not just be sports agents, but one of the people out of the program became head of Showtime Sport. Someone else became lead counsel for the Columbus hockey team. And so the goal is then to keep in touch with them and mentor them, and importantly, emphasize to them that with sports, you can make a difference, that you can tackle any societal problem, whether it's domestic violence or bullying or sex trafficking, by racism or the environment, by messaging through athletes and using the symbols of popular culture to make a real difference. So this Agent Academy will be in Las Vegas. If you're interested, go to steinbergspeaks.com, and you can sign up. It'll jumpstart your career. It will change your life. It will train you with new perspectives about how ultimately to be a big success.
Here to all of that. And I want to tell you from my perspective, we are somewhat visionary, but we're old. That doesn't count in the scheme of things. Years ago in the 70s, I remember commenting after deciding what career track to take that the only qualification you had to be an agent was you had some poor sucker who would call you an agent. Today, your comment is that these folks who are attending your academy not only have a major platform that they didn't have before, $1.3 trillion business of sports. I would say it's an awesome responsibility, not just to be part of that world, but these folks between gambling, NIL, conference realignment, we'll talk about that in a minute, have a tremendous responsibility to impact the business, either positively if they kind of follow your steps or negatively if they don't. Talk about that.
And we really redefined what it means to be an agent and what the fiduciary responsibility is. So it's not just the popular stereotype, Rick, of stacking dollars into the bank book.
All right.
Having a holistic sense for who that young person is. The very first question I ask someone who comes into our office is, what other skills and talents do you have? How can we develop them for second career? So it's, first of all, setting an athlete up to be a role model, where they go back to the high school community and set up a scholarship fund or work with the church or Boys and Girls Club. It's sending them back to the college community where the alums become mentors, and where, like, an Earl Campbell has helped to set up a meatpacking business by a benevolent alum from University of Texas. It's understanding how, if you're Troy Aikman and you ultimately want to be a broadcaster, well, maybe you should do NFL Europe first. It's today's athlete can go on to a career in business, in politics, in broadcast, in coaching. So we do all the preparatory stuff. And part of the key, Rick, is networking. It's sending, if you have athletes with the San Francisco 49ers, you ask them, are there any businesses proximate to Santa Clara where you train that might be interesting contacts to make? And high tech and venture capital. So it's not by chance that Steve Young and Brent Jones both have multi-billion-dollar hedge funds. And the goal is to get the athlete to ultimately become the owner. So our first athlete owner was Duran Cherry with Jackson, and he owned a percentage. And today you have Warwick Dunn owning a tiny piece of the Atlanta Falcons. So, but it's networking. It's walking up to another human being, spending 5 minutes having the discussion with them, and then getting their card and writing on the back of it, like, middle-aged man with boil on his nose who into plastic. So it's laying that foundation. The other aspect necessary, I think, to be truly valuable is to focus on long-term health. So this is where we've done now probably 30 concussion conferences, and there are a whole set of healing modalities that athletes can use: hyperbaric oxygen, stem cells, Bimini, red light, and two especially promising modalities for concussion or traumatic brain injury problems. One is RTMS, which is magnets on the brain, and the other is something called neurofeedback. So through neuroplasticity, you can re-heal a brain that otherwise would go down the road to dementia and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and depression. So it's sensitizing an athlete to the fact that inevitably their career will end at an early time. And we have to focus on financial literacy, health and wellness, a variety of different subjects that empower the athlete to live a productive post-career life.
Put a pin in that for a minute, because that, no matter how you phrase it, it's more important than you even say. The Leigh Steinberg Foundation for Concussion, Traumatic Brain Injury, and Brain Health. We'll be back to that. But one interesting commentary on where athletes are today. Do you find the athlete you talk to today more willing to listen to you because he's more erudite, he's more intelligent, or less willing to listen to you because money comes easy, he's more entitled, he's more empowered?
So I carefully profile athletes. And so we look for the self-starters. We look for the people that ultimately will want to be successful in life in a variety of different pastimes. We look for the one that went to Haiti on a trip to help deal with their latest earthquake. We look for the kid who worked in the inner city. So we try to profile. Inevitably, today's athletes are part of a generation that grows up on multiple input at every time, text and tweet, and multiple platforms of content supply. And so their attention span is attenuated, it's smaller. So yes, they're willing to listen, but you better get it out fast.
And you better get it out in a 30-second bite that they can repeat and like and tell their neighbors. Really good point. You off air, and it's been consistent, the three kind of pillars of doom, let's say, are gambling, NIL, and conference realignment today. When you put them all together, it's a recipe for disaster. I would hate to ask you to rank them. You probably say they're tied for 1, 2, and 3, but give me the scope of the problem with all of them.
Well, let's first talk about gambling. So Malik Beasley now is under investigation for potential performance shaving. So the problem is that inevitably, given the level of economics and the amount of money gambling, you will have a player who gets in trouble with a gambler or wants to be paid by a gambler, and they'll do one of two things. They'll either shave performance, which sets it up for a prop bet.
Yep.
So if the gambler knows the athlete is going to pull himself out of a game or not rebound as many rebounds or whatever, it sets them up. The second problem is inside information. So let me give you an example. Back in the day, I would go visit athletes the night before the game at their player hotel. So I go to visit Steve Young of the 49ers, and he tells me that Charles Haley has hit him during the Saturday practice and injured his arm in a way where he won't play the next day. That's inside information. The world doesn't know that. And an athlete who would tell a gambler about that would change the dynamic. The second thing is shave performance and inside information. So either of those things completely undercuts the integrity of the game. Professional and collegiate sports exist because we have the belief that these are real contests played with the same rules, everyone trying as hard as they can. The minute you subterfuge that, you create the concept of wrestling, that this is fake, this is not an entertainment. So it's the existential threat to pro sports. And I wrote an article in the New York Times last year predicting that there would be incidents. And the problem with all this, Rick, is unintended consequences. There was an impregnable wall between sports and gambling that just went down like the Berlin Wall.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you got NFL owners owning part of FanDuel and DraftKings. You have the fact you can place a bet in the Commander Stadium. You can place a bet in the United Center where the Bulls play. You have Indian casino advertising everywhere. So in the rush for the revenue that would come into professional sports, not enough safeguards and protection was built in to stop this happening. If you have an infinite number of players, somewhere, somehow, someone's going to fall and destroy our illusion about sport.
Make a great case for disaster. What do we do about it?
First of all, you gotta do an education program for players. Remember that most athletes today who are high draft picks and sign big free agent contracts have generational wealth, so they shouldn't be subject to this. Look to more the margin or the fact that someone just has a character flaw to see what the danger is. Now, NIL went for a worthy cause and motivation initially. You had athletes sitting on a college campus from impoverished or needy homes that were living on scholarship but wasn't enough money to keep them at the same standard of living as their non-athletic peers. And so you'd say, yes, but there are other people with need on campus. Yeah, and there are grants for them, and they can work during the school year. So the athletes got resentful. They saw their big crowds, the TV contracts, their athletic jersey being sold with their number on, and they weren't getting anything. So along comes SB 206 in California, 2020, and it says name, image, and likeness. Well, all of a sudden, you have marketing directors for 15-year-olds, and you have Star Wars and free agency for high school players going to college. So here's an example. The best quarterback in high school football initially this last offseason commits to LSU and allegedly is offered $4 million to do that. And then along comes, so he commits to LSU. And Michigan has an alum who comes along and offers that same player $14 million, and he's off to the Michigan and dumps LSU. So this is, in the current environment, has become a battle between institutions with infinite number of alums who can supplement the program. So Ohio State wins the national championship. Ohio State also had the most heavily NIL compensated players. So you've evolved to 4 conferences which have the resources to get all the best players from high school, and they now become the superpowers in collegiate sports. And you have a evolution where the top 4 conferences pulled away from everybody else. This is about to be modified by the House versus NCAA settlement. But at any rate, right now, and the second bite of the apple is transfer portal.
Right.
So in the NCAA tournaments, we saw the Dukes of the world wait until a mid-major player had outperformed his projections from the initial recruit, and they would just go buy him with major money. So now we'll see what happens with this settlement, but it changes everything. And to the point that Cooper Flagg there are different projections, but the highest I saw was $28 million
Yeah.
he had made in 1 year.
Yeah.
So under a basketball salary cap system, given the way he'd be paid the first year, he takes a dramatic salary cut to enter the NBA.
Yeah. He'll make $1 billion if he stays healthy. No bake sale for Cooper Flag, but yet your point is so important. The toothpaste not going back in the tube. So what do we think are the tangible takeaways we can take from House and make sure they help inure to the benefit of leveling the playing field, controlling the transfer portal, guaranteeing equitable distribution across all sports and genders, or is that fantasy land?
It's fantasy land only because it involves the top 4 conferences. And what happens is there's 2 sides to this. Number one, there's an upfront settlement, which will of several $billion. That money will be cut with college football players getting the highest amount, and then college basketball a much lesser amount, and then it's got women's basketball in there, and a small amount for every other sport. So again, you get the non-revenue sports are in trouble now. Second part of it is a new system that allows a college to take 22% of the average athletic revenue for that conference and pay that out as salaries to players. Now, you still have NILs. Unclear to me at this point whether or not you still have athletes who can make money the other way, but this is supposed to put some parity together, but it's only parity for the haves that are already there. And then there's a second part of it in which all NILs have to be sent to Deloitte Touche, an accounting firm, and they have to approve them. How this will all work at the end of the day, again, it's going to reflect the current imbalance in incoming revenue, where college football will get the majority of the money. After that, college basketball, then women's basketball are all cut into it, and then who knows? So if you believe that the reason we have college athletics is it's a learning experience, and participating in it, you pick up self-discipline and abstaining from current gratification for future success and teamwork, and you believe it teaches as an educational system all that, then the more athletes you could have on a college campus involved in sports, the better. And yet this one is going to put serious pressure on, women's gymnastics and men's water polo and sports like that to compete.
I'm afraid you and I are going to be talking about this with the same series of questions 5-10 years from now. And it's not that there's nothing we can do about it, but you kind of wish there was a little more leadership and foresight. But so my final kind of wrap-up question: you graduate Berkeley in '73, traditional courses. It's a 2-part question. First, did you ever predict, I guess, pre-Steve Bartkowski, et cetera, that you would ever be in a position to so profoundly influence the business? A. And B, where's Leigh Steinberg in the next 8 years?
Well, first of all, there was no field of sports agency when I began in 75. I was on a path to probably be a DA. I probably would have gone into politics. My dad had these 2 core values, which were treasure relationships, especially family, and be an activist and make a positive difference in the world, heal pain, and help people who couldn't help themselves. So my focus was on changing the world for the better, and sports was not part of how I anticipated it. And as you know, I was a dorm counselor in undergrad at Berkeley Wall. I was going to law school. I graduated from Berkeley in 1970. I graduated from law school in 1973, and here the first pick in the first round of the 1975 NFL draft asked me to represent them, and we got lucky. We got the largest rookie contract in NFL history. So I've always measured everything in terms of, have I made a difference in young people's lives? And what have we done to deal with bigger societal issues? And can we use sports in a profound way to so if it's climate change, we created the Sporting Green Alliance that put sustainable technologies in wind, solar, recycling, resurfacing, and water into stadium, arena, and practice fields to drop carbon emission and energy costs and transform them into educational platforms. So millions of fans could see a waterless urinal or a solar panel and think about, how do I put that into my own home or business? So as for the future, I've got a new book that will be out next Super Bowl, which is The Comeback, Resilience, Empathy, and What Matters, which are tales of resilience, how life will knock you back, Rick. Invariably, you'll have reverses, which could be health or economics or relationships or marital or substance abuse. And so people will find themselves in a vulnerable and cratered situation. So the question is, how do you find the resilience to get back? We'll have a new app we're pushing that allows people to make bets, but what they win are experiencing. So you can stand on the sideline of it. You can do things that money can't buy. You can do a inning of color on a baseball game. Next, we have the health and wellness that we just talked about, which is taking those modalities, which incidentally are anti-aging and a good thing for you to do. Or
okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So to take them into sports to solve two problems. Number one, that games come down to the very end. The last play, last quarter. In the NFL, they came down to the last play, many games last season. And can you alter the energy, productivity, and focus that someone is able to perform at a higher level at those points? So I think that'll be invaluable in sports. And then second of all, can you heal players from injury quicker? So if you have a left tackle on a football team and he's making $25 million and he goes down, his backup by definition is someone much inferior in talent. And can you heal that player quicker? Can, instead of 6 weeks, you get him back in 3 weeks? And I think that again will be invaluable. I'll still do agentry. We've got a new potential agency put together that will get announced in the next couple of weeks. And then, but again, it's how can we tackle societal issues in a profound way, and there's always new projects. Someone's taking me to a pickleball tournament next week. And there are new sports and new apps. We have a proposal for a new jockey league that would reimagine horse racing, and there'd be a consortium between owners, track owners, and owners of horses and jockeys Because the horse, outside of Mr. Ed, which you'll remember,
Yep.
can't talk. So could you create a league where they compete against each other in a series of races, and you have a draft, and you have all sorts of television content and the rest of it? I have some new movies that I'm supposed to be technical advisor on, a couple projects particularly, which I can't talk about right now, but I'll have a role similar probably to Jerry Maguire.
I'll tell you one thing. You're consistent, you're virtuous, and your values are always first rate. And it is a pleasure to call you a friend. Thank you very much, Leigh Steinberg. Rick Horrow, speak with you soon.